One of the opportunities that I took advantage of is their paint stations. The Forgotten Coast on Plein Air offers paint stations where you have a choice of 4 Florida artists to partner with. And if you sign up for them, you pay $40 for a 2-hour one-on-one plein air session. They provide the materials and they teach you a one-on-one lesson. And I thought, oh, let's check this out. Actually, a friend of mine, Michelle Held, who's a friend of the artist that I took a class from, said, you'll love Ruth, you got to take her class. And when I looked it up, there was only one time slot open and it was for her. So I took it. And I just want to show you some of her work. It's just inspiring and fun. And she showed me some of her journals and shared with me her love of journaling. And she was a graphic artist, and how she arranges the pages and uses calligraphy and lettering, and part of the way she balances her pages, all sorts of stuff that just spoke to me. But one of the things that caught my eye about her work was her whimsical play with color and perspective. And when I showed her some of my journals because she knew I journaled. And after seeing mine, she said, well, what is it that you want? What do you want to learn from me? What do you see that I can help you with? And her whimsical stuff is so outside my comfort zone because I'm so much of a realist that I said, would you show me how you do a whimsical house or boat or something? And we were really close to these colorful beach houses. And she goes, well, let's just go over here and do this because I did this with one of my other students earlier in the week. So I'm experimenting with this. It's something new where you just kind of wonk up the horizon line and you bend it rather than it's straight. And it's just a lot of fun. So I'm going to show you what I've drawn. It's not as whimsical as what I did to start off with her, but you've got to play with a new technique for it to become natural for you. So give yourself grace when you're learning. And I don't normally show everybody, oh, I'm learning this, so it might not turn out right. But it's a journey, one page at a time. I'm gonna keep trying. But I want to share with you some of this whimsical things that I'm trying to do and at least see what I've been up to. Hope you enjoy it. This is the painting I did with Ruth. It was so much fun. And again, the perspective is skewed because if you look at the lines where the house rests, it's a curve. This is a curve. This is a slight curve, not as great of a curve as what's down here. And it was so fun to follow her step by step. We did start in pencil, and then we went over in pen. We erased the pen, and then we started laying in the shadows. Well, I'm attempting to do this. Now, one of the things that we did is she said, for beginning, don't even think about perspective. You're doing a front end view. So you don't see any side of the house, and even the steps are just straight on. So that just simplifies when you begin, not to get too caught up with perspective. So I have a pretty good foundation in perspective, but this just made it easier for the lesson. Well, I have tried, this is the first one I'm trying. I skewed it a little bit, but as you can see right now, my love of realism is really honing in. And I did it in pencil first. I'm tracing it in pen, but you see a little bit of perspective here. The stones show that a little bit. This shows it, with the back going in as well as this piece. And then this coming out at you. So again, it's really leaning toward more realism than whimsy, but I'm hoping that the bend of it and then the colorful way of which I'm going to paint this will hopefully shout out a little more, oh, that's fun and playful. We shall see. But it's the painting part that I want to show you, and you can let me know what you think. It's a little different side of me, but I like to explore a variety of things, and I like you along with me. So the first thing I want to do on this is set up, if I was outside, especially sitting at a table, I would probably pull this out and set up. Here's my kit that I carry with me. I have the magnets. I'll pull back a little bit so you can see. Here we go. The page I'm not painting on, I have covered with freezer paper. Probably could use tracing paper too, but don't use wax paper because wax paper has wax on both sides, and sometimes the pinching of the clips transfers the wax, and then when you paint that picture later, it repels. All right, so obviously my paints aren't clean because that's yellow. It's mostly green. And I clean I mix my colors in my lids, and I'm going to paint with this limited palette because that's usually what I travel with, and I'm going to see if I can get a whimsical feel for it. Now, the only thing that I think I'm going to add on this one is I'm going to experiment, and I'm going to experiment on here because it's a scrap sheet of paper, with flipping and splattering, because the watercolor brush that I'm using mostly when I'm traveling is my aqua brush or water brush by Pentel. I prefer Pentel over the other ones that I've used because, and I just carry the large one because it has a large amount of bristles here and a teeny tiny point. So when I want details, I barely touch down the tip, and yet I can squeeze and get more paint if I want to. So the process that Ruth showed me was, draw in pencil, trace in pen, erase your pencil, and then you're going to come back and lay in your shadows. Well, there's quite a few shadows here because of the trees that are falling on everything. I'm trying to learn to do a little whimsical, less realistic, but I'm really leaning toward my realistic at this point. If I was outside, one of the things I like to do when I'm painting outside is to secure my paper towel because I don't want it blowing away. First thing I want to do is the shadows. And I'm going to see what color this is already mixed up. It's kind of a dull purple, which isn't a bad shadow color. I believe that's what I'd used it for before. Not really sure what colors I used to make it, so I'm going to clean this palette. I'll come back to that one in a minute. Ultramarine blue, a little bit of brown, kind of clean up that red, a little bit more red, a little more blue. Okay, that's pretty dark, so I'm going to squeeze water out, make it more fluid. I want at least a little puddle here. I don't have a ton of shadows, but I do on the ground and on the house. So I'm going to start with some teeny little shadows. There's a shadow, tiny little one there. There's probably one behind this. Underneath all the awnings. There's going to be a bigger one up underneath that extension of an awning. And yeah, my windows weren't as high up as that showed, but that's okay. I have a little bit. Well, let's see. Right up under here is a little bit. I didn't make that thick enough. So I'll make this one deeper and darker. Trying to leave that a little bit of the light above there. Okay, this comes down almost straight to about the bottom of the door. It's good enough. It's kind of scary. All right, there's speckled shadows all over here. This is in the sun. Oh no, it's not. It's in the shadows. Pick up a little more of that shadow color. That's why I wanted to mix up a lot before I started. So I want it to be pretty consistent. I'm gonna let that be a little bit more in the sun than what it shows on here, on the photo anyway. Watercolor does dry lighter than it is when you first paint it. I want to make sure that I show shadows on the roof if I'm going to show shadows on the house. And I'll come back with like this. This is in the shadows behind this bike. that box is in shadows. And there's dark, at least there. This will come back and get darker. I'm just trying to lay in where I see majority. That's okay. All this area over here is really in shadow. Some of it is speckled, a little bit of dapple light coming through, but most of it is in shadow. So I'm just gonna cover it, and we can come back and add the local color later, because watercolor is transparent and the local color can be painted over it. Only when it's dry. Make sure it's dry. So, grab a little bit more shadow color. Got to do the same thing over here. There's foliage back here that's casting a shadow. And there's shadows. Oh, I just kind of went over that fence. Didn't mean to do that. This is actually in the shadows too. Okay, and we're gonna, is there anything else I want? There's part of it. See, most of this is in shadows too, but I'll at least put shadows behind it and underneath it. Put some of it in shadow. Okay, I'm gonna stop and take at least a quick photo of this portion, and then I'll continue. The next thing I'm going to look at is the color of the house, and it's a pale sage green. And being whimsical, I want to pump that up. Sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's fun, pump you up. Okay, so I'm going to mix a dark. So I'm going to mix the ultramarine blue, and I'm not adding water other than the water that comes through the brush. Ultramarine blue, the burnt sienna, and maybe a touch of purple over here. See how dark that is? It's pretty dark. Tiny bit of the peacock blue is really strong color. It's a Mission watercolor. All these colors are professional grade. All right, so I've mixed a dark color, and I'm going to fill in the windows. And what I want to do is fill them in similar to how they were. There were 9 panes in these sections. So I'm trying to leave a little bit of space in between to indicate the white pane. I could just paint it solid and come back with a white gel pen later, but I'd rather not do that if I can get away with it. Has 4, it's funny, all these windows are different. 4 panes in each section. And nobody's going to notice that's not the homeowner, because normally when you show a picture, you don't show right next to it the picture you were using. But as an instructor, I'll do that. This one has little bitty tiny windows. So again, it's a different type of feel. I feel like I'm running out of dark colors, so I'm going to pick up the darkest colors on my palette. And it ends up with all the primaries. And that's how you get this really dark color. So I want this center pane of the window on the door to be really dark. So put that in. I want some of the part under the house really dark. Again, trying to avoid, I'm saving the lights so that hopefully they will still be there. And back here is darker. This is a box of some sort that had some things, I guess, stored in it. And I didn't look. But it's closer to me in this picture. Okay, I've got one more set of windows. This one had 3 panes across in each section. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I know you can count, but it helps me say some things out loud. Okay. I might have to come back and get that darker later. And that's okay if I do. There's a little bit of cast shadows here that are a little darker. And I'm going to run one under this fence. I'm going to put a cast shadow up under this petition here. It's a shower, that outdoor shower, that I think is the cutest thing. And I'm going to make the dark behind it a little darker, so you know that it's hanging there above the ground. Okay, wipe off my brush. I'm not squeezing the brush. The joy of the water brush, it has water coming through it all the time. Also, water coming through it all the time is going to water down your dark mix, so that's why this is lighter than that. But it's easy when I'm traveling. Now, I want to look at the I know I have some foliage going on, but I'm going to do that after I paint the building, the house. The house is a pale muted green, and the door is also kind of a mint green. It's mint green where the other's more of a sage green. And I'm going to try to mix a color that's brighter than that. Now, the trouble I'm going to run into is the greenery is all greenery. So if I paint the house all green, will the shrubs, the plants, show up in front of it? Well, that's where I might just change them to flowering shrubs. I have the option because I'm the artist. I can change things. I can move things. So, got to remember that. All right, whimsical. I think I want the roof sort of a steel blue. So I'll keep it sort of true to that because I'm going to do a bright, bright blue sky. All right, so I'm going to go back to the green. Let's see what green this makes. Oh, I'm running in to the shadow color that was just mixed. So I'm going to clean that palette because I want this a more pure color. See, that would not have been pretty if it got mixed in with the green. All right, so I'm going to take, way to clean your colors is you wait till they dry and then you wet them and move it over. So let's see what color that is. That's pretty bright. It's a really good spring color for foliage. All right, let's try a tad turquoise added to that. Do I want a house that bright or do I want the door that bright? I think I want the door that bright. All right, I need to be careful when I'm painting this, but I know that the shadow that I painted a minute ago is dry, so I'm all right. So I'm going to paint right over the part that I want green, leaving the shadow where it is. Okay, I like that color. That's happy. Now, instead of making it a totally different green like a sage green, I'm thinking about watering this down, watering it down, having a watery mix for the house. So it's still green, this green, but not as deep a green. Now, it's going to, when I hit the shadows, it's going to look darker, just like it did around the door. But hopefully, in the light, it will show that it is a lighter tone of that green. I think I mentioned in this video that I am trying to paint or draw daily in April. And I'm considering it kind of a focused intentionality, a time where I want to focus on line drawing and watercolor washes. I also might include in that thumbnails where I'm practicing looking for value, and that'll help me in my more serious watercolor work. Not necessarily watercolor, but even plein air work. All right, I like that because it's a lighter tone of what's there. All right, so I can look at now, I'm looking at, there's a lot of wood. So I'm going to get my burnt sienna. It's a little dirty with a touch of blue in it, but that's okay. That's pretty dark. But this is fairly dark. It looks like a pumpkin, but it's not. There's a shadow. I missed a shadow. I'll put a shadow under there. And I'll go ahead and, no, it's too, it needs to be more red. So I washed my brush out, added more pure burnt sienna to it. And now I'm looking for things that are brown. The steps are brown, but the top of the steps are lighter because they're in the sun. So I'm just going to put those. Now, didn't quite wait for that to be totally dry from the shadow underneath the steps, so that's all right. There is some brown tones of some things under here, so I'm just going to add to that shadow color to make it a little more interesting. This is wood right here. There is quite a bit of wood over here on this shower stall. So I'm just going to, some of it's rusted, which is fine for this color. And I think there's some kind of netting hanging here. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's darker, so put some of that color on there. And zoom in and look. Not sure what's happening back here. That looks rusted. But it's all right to not know exactly what's going on. Just give an indication of what's there. And I think it'll work out. Right now it's not very whimsical at all, but that's okay. I'm learning. And it doesn't mean I'll ever be a whimsical type artist. I don't think I'll ever focus on just that. It's just fun to try different things. That was nice and dark. And so is this, some kind of pole for electricity. Okay, those are not dark enough, so I'm going to go back over those. Again, it'd be a little easier if I had a marker. I could be more exact and make it darker. And I might end up doing that at the end. That's what I did during her class. She had some nice dark markers for us to use. So it's your choice. All right, there's a little shadow up underneath this and the bike. More of a shadow here. All right. I am going to do a little pen work. One thing I forgot to do is putting in some dots to add some variety. I'll zoom in so you can see it a little bit. I need to do this where it is dry. But for example, she said, instead of putting them random, around like that, put the dots in groups so it looks intentional to show some texture. You can, line some of the stonework if you want to, just to show that it's different. I'm just going to scribble across some of them. But just different ways to indicate texture, add interest. I'm going to add some more foliage in here, and I'll probably add more pen at the end. But I mean, it's just, I had so much fun learning from her, and I hope you check her out. I'm going to be in touch with her when I get this videoed and say, hey, look what I did. I hope you're all right with it. No, okay, the wood in the light is much warmer. Yellow wood tone, which I like. Looks like it's in the sun. And a definite difference from the other wood that's been painted. Lighten that up just a little bit. Now there's some rust on the bike. I can put some of that in there. I'll make it a little darker. I think there's a basket on the front. Can't really see it in my picture because there's 2 posts that are in the photograph that I am not using because they hold up wires to outside lights, and I'm not including that in the painting. That's the joy of when you're painting your own things, you can decide whether you want things included or not. So this is somewhat of the grassy ground area. It's not all, it's a lot of it's dirt, but it's in the sun, so I want it to be a warm dirt. If that makes sense. This doesn't look very whimsical yet. All right, one of the things that she has is these turquoise objects. That's maybe a little too green. There we go, getting more turquoise there. All right, this one, ooh, very turquoise. And there was a little bitty turquoise thing back here in the shade. It might have been a bird feeder. Not really sure. There was also something over here, but I didn't draw it in. There was something else turquoise here. I'll just leave that dot there. And what's so cool about this is it is an outdoor shower. And right here is the shower curtain. I think it really had something to do with underwater sea, some kind of creatures. I don't remember. I didn't get a good picture of it. Shower curtain holder. Might make that a little darker back in there. Maybe a little cooler floor. Okay, this is bright green. Not really sure what it is. Check that. Let's add a little more of this green to it, or this yellow to it. Yeah. So I'm just going to cover this. It's all pretty bright green, and it was somewhat in the shade. So the only thing I'll have to worry about when I do this is, I didn't paint that's probably wood. I missed that. Sorry, I go back and forth. You know, as you're working on stuff like this, you'll realize that you're not talking, or I'm not talking, because my brain has to be on the right side to do spatial visual stuff. My left side of the brain is my verbal talking side. So there will be interruptions in my thinking just because of the way my brain works. I'm going to give it a blue seat. And I'm going to give it some rusty blue color. Even though it didn't have any rusty blue color. It's kind of just white and brown. Wanted it to show up a little bit more than that. All right, now I need a little more dirt over here. This is kind of a cement. Well, I guess it'd be grayer, so let me add a little brown to that. No, I mean a little blue to that. Blue and gray. Blue and brown make kind of a gray. That ended up probably more, more green. That's all right. All right, then the stones were a variety of colors, so I don't want to make them solid. Sometimes some indicating just some color, can be mixed in color, doesn't have to be the same. You just want a variety. You don't want it to be all the same. And you can even indicate some other stones that aren't outlined if you want. So it continued on. Now, I'm going to get to be a little more looser. I'm going to start adding some foliage around the house. Back in here, because the house should now be dry. See if I can add enough look of foliage with it being different enough from the house. Okay, so I'm liking that. That might be a little bright green. Yeah, let's add a little red to that, tone it down just a little bit. All right, so now we have some dark green. This could be a good shadow color. I'm not really sure what's happening back here, so I'm going to add a little more foliage in the background. We just want to add interest to what's there. And I don't mind that being dark because it's in the shade. And you can see some green maybe through the tire of the bike. I'm going to add some green here. And some green around the grass, around the stonework. And this is where I feel like it's going to show more whimsy as I create a little looser. Take that off that stone, go around it instead. Okay, go a little bit over that. Kind of invite you in with the diagonal lines is what that hopefully does. Pulls you into the picture. What does it need now? I'm letting this dry because I want to add some really bright flowers somewhere. I'm going to paint this darker, but I think I'm going to paint it pink because I need some brighter colors in here. And I went really dark because it's in the shadows. Squeeze the paint off my brush, continue with water. And just let it, oh, there was a little piece of hair, probably cat fur, on my brush. Can't imagine that, can you? Let's add a little pink in here in the shadows just to spread that color around a little bit. You want to repeat colors. And let's put some pink in the shower curtain. I like that. This is some kind of silvery gray thing. I'm not really sure what it is, but I need to put at least kind of a bluer tone to it. Looks like some kind of metal. And it might be a whole, oh, I think it might be a mirror. I don't know. I don't have to make sense of it all to have fun with it. And the 25 on this was actually white, so I'll probably come back with a white gel pen and do that. Let's see if there's anything else I want to do. I'm going to do the roof in that pale gray. So I'm going to take ultramarine blue, add a little bit of burnt sienna to it. Let's see if that's kind of a gray-green. I think if I add more water to it, it's going to be all right. It should be, again, let's put a little, see how dark it is. Okay. It's about as dark as our shadows, but when I go over the shadows, they'll still show up. And I'm going on either side of the double lines to try to get a feel more for the ridges in the roof. And leave that to have a little divider between the different pieces of metal, at least alluded to. Okay, now I need to create the sky. And then the last thing I'll do is bring in part of a tree. Well, I'll probably do the tree, some of the tree here and the sky at the same time. But I want to do my sky really bright and vibrant. So I'm going to come back here and add more turquoise to what I just did on the roof. The edge of the roof should be dry because I did not paint in that double-edged part. I hope it's dry. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit of, yeah, I like that color better. All right, so what I want to do is I want to lay down my brush. Oh, I want it brighter than that. Lay down my brush. There we go. See how bright and vibrant that is? That's some little more. Okay, before I go too far, I need to spread it out. If I want clouds, I can lift some of it off. That once it goes beyond my, see, I don't want it to have too much of a line. But I do want to carry it on where the sky is. You'll see sky. See, there's actually a house back there, but I'm not doing that. I dip back in. Have fun with the color. Make it a little brighter at times. Yeah, that's definitely brighter. Might be a little too much. It's all right. It's supposed to be whimsical, right? I just went right past that line because that's the power line. If you want clouds, I just soaked it up a little bit. Okay, now I go back to my green that I had. My green. Let's see, there were some trees back here. I'm going to go ahead and put them in because blue and green play well together, and I don't mind if that's blurred because it's in the distance. So anything in the distance can be blurred. If this green is too watery compared to the blue, it may leave, well, see, like what's happening here, cauliflower blooms where the wet paper that's wetter is pushing toward the drier paper. But being whimsical and all that, you know, it's okay to have some funky stuff going on. Also in the back behind the house are some other trees, so I can add that here and kind of cover that up if I want to, or just blur it out and let it be part of the painting. So there's some trees here. Not really liking the dark around there. Not sure what I'm going to do with that, but it's okay. Still having fun with it. There's another tree over here. Again, this was pretty wet, so I'm going to still come in. Part of it's dark because it was in the shadowy part. I'm going to go ahead and lay in some of the shadows first. Then I'm going to bring in some lighter green. Just put that right on top. Again, green and blue play well together, so if my green mixes in with the sky, I'm all right. And then I want some of the bright green right here for some of this palm tree look. And I might even put, what do I want to do? I wish I hadn't put that on there. That's kind of distracting. And I think I need to make the shadows of my house a little darker. Things you think about. I'm going to let it dry first. And I need to do something under here. I'm going to put some of the lighter green in the back, like down the sidewalk. Just fades out, so at least it just finishes that picture. It's not. Oh, I forgot the green right here. There's green right here. And I'm just covering the shadow that it was already painted. And hopefully that will feel like foliage in a minute. I'm not liking that right there. I have a tendency not to wait. I'm not very patient. I should have waited a little bit and let that dry. I'll leave the color links in the description. But spattering and leaving splatters on your artwork is kind of fun. If I want my shadows darker, I need to do it before the splatters, because if I go over splatters with paint, even if it's dry, sometimes they lift up again. So I'm going to hold that thought for a minute. A little more water. This is a darker blue. Is that a touch of purple? Okay. All right. Yep. All right, I have a little bit of shadow color mixed in my little magnifying glass because my paint palettes were full of color, so. And y'all can say, hey man, that was a bad idea or that was a good idea. But, you know, it's just a piece of paper. Don't get so hung up if it doesn't turn out. That's one thing that I am really trying to embrace is it's all right to just play, and if it doesn't turn out, it's just paper. It is just paper. It's one page in your art journey. You know what draws my eye really bad is that right there. I don't know why, because it's so dark and it's almost to the middle. But I think I'm going to add some white to it so it's not so glary at me. You tell me what you think. Good, bad, indifferent. Oh, I know where else I forgot shadows. I forgot shadows underneath each of the windows. I need a little shadow where the white facing is, or trim. See, like it's right there, there, and there's a little shadow. Ooh, that a big shadow. Look at your picture, Gary. There. It's much darker over here in the picture. So let's add to that shadow feel. This shadow is on the ground. Ground will take shadows also take a little bit of the characteristic of what's on the ground, and dirt has a little brown in it, grass, etc. So I'm going to play up the shadow on this side and kind of do it at an angle to pull your eye in. And darker shadows are closer to what's casting them. Just toning the blue down a little bit. Doesn't look like it. Looks like it just awakened it. That's looking a little more fun. I want to add a little more vibrancy to this. I'm just painting yellow over it. And I'll put that 25 on it in a little bit, and I think it'll read better. All the white over here, I realize, is steel and gray, so I'm going to make this a little darker in streaks because it's bent, kind of aluminum. I don't know if it's aluminum or steel or what. Metal. It's corrugated metal. So I just want to make that a little darker because it is in the shadows. Yeah, again, I didn't wait long enough. That's okay. It's okay. All right, here's my white pen that I'm going to lighten this up so it's not screaming at me. Oh, I like that already better. Do you see the difference? Even though it's on the house, if it draws your eye in a negative way, just get rid of it. I want to fill in a little bit of the gray behind the wheel. I want some of that wheel to show. So now I'm looking at the picture, what's really in the light. Well, this front part's really in the light. Don't want to make anything darker. You know, for a whimsy, I need to stop and leave it alone. After letting it dry and coming back to it, I decided I didn't like what was happening up here, and I wanted to make some more into a Florida-looking palm tree look. so that now that that's dry, I can just add some squiggles and some other indications. I don't have to add that, but I just like to in the trees, just to get it a little more definition. Okay. Don't need to add anything to those because they're way off in the distance. If I want to add just a little to this over here, I can do that, but I don't want much because, again, it's in the distance. Here I can add a little bit more dots and dashes and grassy like things if I want to. If I want to add some shadows in pen, that's an option too. Might indicate this a little bit more. Oh, I did add a little bit of the pink in the flowers just to add color. I'm going to splatter it in just a minute. Thought you might want to watch that process to see if it's a good thing or not. I don't want to splatter the entire thing, but I think it'll help with just some added fun. So I'm going to start with the turquoise. And I'm going to go here. Don't know if you can sort of see it. Okay, I'm going to clean that brush. Ooh, a lot of turquoise in that brush. I almost need a water container to clean that one out. Okay, I'll just switch to the other brush I was using. Let's go to the rose, opera rose color. Yeah, very subtle. If I wanted bigger splatters, I could get them, but I think that's enough. Okay, there's my whimsical attempt today. What do you think? So this is a lot simpler than this was. This was way more involved. So, oh, do I want this to be 25 in white? And I'm not going over it in another layer because I want that to sink in and not be bright, bright, bright white. Yeah, I think I'm all right with that. Oh, well, make the tire of this a little brighter. Put a reflection on that. Don't overwork it, Carrie. Oh, this was white down here. I want to make that a little whiter. All right, I'm done. I'm quitting. Walking away. Hope you liked it. Give me a thumbs up if you thought it was worthwhile. If you had fun following along. If you're going to try one, let me know. And I'll draw one with you at some point. But I'm just working on trying to draw and paint something every day during April. And I'm posting them on my Facebook page, Art by Carrie. So feel free to look over there and see what I'm doing if you're interested. And cheer me on there too. Thanks for joining me.